All right, Nitro 5.5 is on mutator methods. We went through this in class, but I just wanted to upload a video for those of you who weren't in class. So 5.5.5 is the rectangle class. And in the rectangle class, they've already got the instance variables. They've already got the constructor. We need to create the following methods. Public height is an integer, so int get height, and all we're going to do is return the height instant variable. And public int get width, I'm skipping one, doing all the getters first, get width, and we're just going to return the width instance variable, and then public int get area, we will just return the value of the area, which will of course be width times height. And then we have a public int get perimeter, which we will just return the perimeter, which is the width plus the height, and then that quantity times 2. So there's all the getters. Now for the setters or mutators, public void set height. So to set the height, we need an integer which we'll call h, and our height instance variable we will set equal to the value h that they give us. And a set width, which will also take an integer, which we'll call w for right now, and that will set the instance variable width equal to that value w. So there's two ways that the user can change the height and the width without giving them direct access. Oh my gosh, then they have, in addition to get perimeter and get width, they have print area and, in addition to get area and get perimeter, they have print area and print perimeter. So that calculates the area and then actually prints it out instead of just returning that value. And they already have the toString, except rectangle, they changed this up a little bit. They're telling us right here what the output should be. So we want rectangle, not the word width, colon space, and then the number for the width, and then a comma, space, and then the word rectangle again. The word rectangle again, and then the word height, colon, space, and then whatever the height is. So I think that is okay so far for the implementation of the rectangle class. Then we just have to write some code in the tester class. Make some objects and print out their areas and perimeters. So we can say something like rectangle, rect1 equals new rectangle. And let's make the rectangle 10 by 50. Let's make another one, rectangle rect2 equals new rectangle. Let's make this one 20 by 20. No particular reason for that, just testing things out. So we should be able to say rect1. Let me do a print statement first. System.out.println for rect1. Rect1.print area and rect1.print perimeter. Got an extra n in there. And then system.out, let's do this again. For rect2, and rect2 print area, rect2 print perimeter, and let me get a couple spaces before that. A couple \n. Let's see what this will display for us. They didn't give us any guidelines on what this should look like. They just told us to create a couple objects just to mess around with the methods we wrote. Rectangle 1, 10 by 50, area 500, perimeter 120. That looks good. Rectangle 2, area 400, perimeter 2020, 2080. That looks good. I think we're good on 555, the rectangle class. All right, on to 556, which is the full fraction class. So, first of all, in our fraction class, we need instance variables. So we want a private int for the numerator and a private int for the denominator. And we need a constructor, so public fraction with an int for the numerator and an int for the denominator. And we will set the instance variables equal to those parameters that they pass us. So the constructor is done. Then we have to implement all of these numerators. So get numerator should just say return numerator. Get denominator should just say return denominator. That's the get numerator and get denominator part of this. Set numerator. So that's the implementation of the get numerator and get denominator. Now for set numerator, all we have to do is say our instance variable equals the parameter they give us. And same thing for set denominator. Our instance variable equals the parameter that they give us. So that's very simple implementation. Now for add, subtract, multiply, toString. Okay, so now for the add method, I wanted to show you a way to add fractions. It's not efficient in terms of getting the least common denominator, but this always works. If we have two fractions, a over b plus c over d, then this is one way you can add those fractions. If you take this first fraction and you multiply it top and bottom by the denominator of the second fraction, and then you take the second fraction and you multiply it top and bottom by the denominator of the first fraction, then you will see, if I simplify this a little bit, you will see that the first fraction is AD over BD, and the second fraction is CB over DB, but I'm going to write that as BD. And just to keep things in alphabetical order, I'm going to write this instead of CB, I'm going to write that as BC. And then since we have a common denominator, we can write all of that over in one fraction, AD plus BC over BD. So our new numerator is going to be the numerator of the first fraction times the denominator of the second, and the numerator of the second fraction times the denominator of the first. Maybe I should have left that looking like CD to emphasize CB to emphasize that a little bit. So the numerator of the first times the denominator of the second plus the numerator of the second times the denominator of the first. So I'm just going to write this in words for right now. New numerator equals the numerator of the first, which is our current numerator, times the denominator of the second, which is going to be other dot get denominator. The other fraction, get denominator. And then we're going to add the numerator of the second fraction. So other dot get numerator times the denominator of the first fraction. So the numerator of the first times the denominator of the second, and the numerator of the second times the denominator of the first. And that's going to be our new numerator, but we are going to store that as the numerator of our current fraction, so that our current fraction is going to be updated with that addition. And similarly, the denominator of the sum is simply the product of the denominators. So the denominator of our first fraction times the denominator of the second fraction, which is going to be other dot get denominator. So that's, I think, what we want there. So we are mutating our fraction to now be the sum of itself and the other fraction. And if we believe that's working correctly, the subtraction will work exactly the same with a minus sign right there. And we want to do something similar via when we multiply. So when we multiply two fractions, the numerator is just the product of the numerators. So that's the numerator of our first fraction times the numerator of our second fraction, which is going to be other dot get numerator. And the denominator is now going to be the denominator of our first fraction times the denominator of the second fraction, which is other dot get denominator. So I think we want that to look like that. And then finally, to implement the toString, if we scroll down here a little bit, when it's printing out a fraction, it's printing out the numerator and then a space and then a slash and then a space and then the denominator. So I think we want to return numerator and space slash space and denominator to look something like that. So this is multiply, subtract, add, the toString. I think all of that is done. They gave us some hints over here that I already went over. So now in the fraction tester, let's do what they have suggested. Create two fractions, one called first, which is going to be a new fraction with a numerator of 1 and a denominator of 2, and then another fraction called second, which is a new fraction with a numerator of 1 and a denominator of 3. And then they say system.out.println system.out.println the word before, and then system.out.println first fraction and a plus sign, and then first. So that trying to print the variable first is going to call upon the toString method that we wrote over here. And then very similarly, the word second, followed by the printing of the variable second, which is going to print that fraction object. So let's see if that's running without error first of all. Oh, it looks like I misspelled denominator in a couple different places. Numerator, denominator, numerator, denominator. Oh, here we go. Denominator. A little bit of misspelling there. Let's try that again. Other dot get denominator, denominator. I misspelled it down here too. Oh, because I copied and pasted. Nice. Okay, so this should run without error now. We're getting that printing out. And then they want us to try our dot multiply method. So the first fraction dot multiply by the second fraction. So 1/2 times 1/3 should be 1/6, which means 1/6 should be now the first fraction. So we're going to print this out here, except now this is going to be the word after, and the first and the second. So now if we run this, it should look just like their code. After 1/6 and 1/3, after 1/6 and 1/3. I believe that's doing everything that they want us to do. Okay, so that appears to be working fine. I think that's it for Nitro 5.5.6 on the fraction class. One more piece to Nitro 5.5. Okay, so on Nitro 5.5.7, we have this routine class, and they've already got the code that they want us to use in the tester, but we have to implement the routine class. So first of all, the class should have instance variables, which are doubles, for sleep and fun and school and sports. And then we need a public constructor. And for the constructor should initialize all of those instance variables to 0, which means in the constructor I don't have to do anything. And if I don't give those variables a value, they will automatically be initialized to 1.1. So now I need several methods in this class. Public void set sleep, and that's going to be a double that they want us to call hours sleep. Don't think it really matters what we call it, but that's just going to set our sleep instance variable equal to the parameter that they're passing us. And we're going to do that 3 more times. For set fun, we need a double called hours of fun, and our fun instance variable gets set to the hours of fun that they passed as a parameter. And then public void set school also needs a double for the hours of school. And again, we're going to set our instance variable school equal to that parameter that they're giving us. And public void set sports, we need a double for hours of sports, and we are going to set our instance variable equal to that parameter that they're passing us. And we need a public void print total, which is going to say something like system.out.println something. So set all the variables. The last method should print the total numbers per the week for those activities. Weekly hours by doing the daily hours multiplied by 7. So we want to say something like this. First of all, the total hours is going to be the sleep variable plus the fun variable plus the school variable plus the sports variable. The sum of all those times 7. That's going to be the total hours. And then another variable for hours in a week, which is just going to be 24 times 7. That's how many hours are in a week. And then another integer, which is hours left will be hours in week minus total hours. So that'll tell us how much hours they have left over. So the first thing we're going to print is, it looks like we're going to print the term grand total and a colon and a space, and then this variable that we just created called total hours. Next up, we want to print out hours left over, and that'll be this variable we created up here called hours left. So if we do set school to 8, set sleep to 8, set sports to 3, and set fun to 2, and then we print the total, public void print total, so that should all work. Let's see if we get a printout looking something like their printout in the notes. Oh, what does it not like? Sleep. Oh, we cannot have this be an integer. All of those are doubles, so all of these have to be doubles. Okay, and maybe we should say here 24.0.0, and maybe over here just to emphasize that we're doubles. Okay, let's run the code again, see if we get the printout. Grand total. Okay, so we need to print out this other stuff as well. So we need several more print statements, it looks like. So we want to print out weekly totals. I wasn't sure that our one little print total method was supposed to print all of this stuff out. So then we want to print out system.out.println sleep colon space, and then the value of the variable called sleep. And then something very similar, the word school, and then the variable school, and then the word sports, and the variable sports, and then the word fun, and the variable fun. All right, so let's see if that looks more like what it's supposed to look like. I'm making sure I have semicolons over here. And I think weekly totals. Oh, we got to multiply by 8. I mean, we got to multiply by 7 for these totals also. So this has got to be sleep times 7, school times 7, sports times 7, fun times 7. So we get the correct numbers there. Weekly totals, not daily totals. All right, I think that's looking the way it's supposed to look. Very good. And that makes us done with Nitro 5.5.